It would be the height of arrogance to say that I know the Christian response to the problem of nihilism, the here meaning as in the only. Yet such humility should not prevent us from speaking or aiming at the truth. So with that spirit, here it goes, the Christian response to nihilism. The first thing to recognize is that the faithful Christian can share many characteristics with the nihilists. Both Christians and nihilists oppose the sweet, sentimental, vacant, moral, complacent, sweet deity who has our best interests and advantages in mind. God as a life coach or post-mortem insurance policy, a grandfather in the sky who sends angels to protect us from ill. That God has little to do with the strange God of Isaac, Jacob, and Jesus Christ. Nihilists strive against this complacency, one of the false deities of our age. Nihilists do so by recognizing the problem of evil and lashing out at the idea of God for the wrong. A Christian can embrace this nihilist observation in that nihilists notice the human struggle with sin or the great scandal that is evil. A Christian can join a nihilist in opposing the complacent Christianity prevalent today and shout, "What about evil and death?" to those concerned about a purpose-driven life. Both Christians and nihilists are God-haunted in a deep way. Nihilists lashing out, while Christians struggling with faith and understanding. Neither are complacent. Flannery O'Connor once said that she is a Catholic, not like a Methodist is a Methodist, but in the way an atheist is an atheist. And this is what I think she meant. I can go further. The nihilist has nothing on the Christian when it comes to understanding the problem of evil and attempting to grasp its cosmic consequences. It is not as if evil was invented in the 20th century, after all. The Christian knows evil and its consequences and locates them at Golgotha, the place where Christ was crucified for the sins of the world. Think about what that event entails. God becomes man, the infinite, immortal God takes on finite flesh. He lives a perfect life. He is accused of impiety, and the authorities acquiesce in his crucifixion. He is nailed to a cross and hangs in a humiliated state in order to bear the sins of all human beings. That is an injustice. That is an evil, if ever there was one. For all the questions that this raises, and those questions are legion, let us suffice to say that Christians know evil. Evil is central to the faith. We will see in the work of Flannery O'Connor that she seeks to revivify or reacquaint modern people with evil. She depicts the grotesque, the indiscriminate murder or rape, so that people can be shocked out of their complacent, everything will be all right with Jesus, vapidity. O'Connor, representing the best of the Christian tradition, never tries to justify innocent suffering. It cannot and must not be justified. Few modern authors take the problem of evil as seriously, and O'Connor gives evil an embodiment, both inside and outside her characters. Satan is there to tempt. The first part of the Christian response to nihilism is a negative response. It is not a refutation. It is an attempt to show that nihilism is a thinkable doctrine, but that its implications for human life are not the freedom-loving, autonomy-loving stuff that modern nihilists embrace. Nihilism leads to an indifference to the lives of others, not to charity. It causes a calloused unconcern for the innocent sufferings of some. It may even countenance totalitarian temptations, as unconstrained people try to make the world to conform to their invented visions. unconstrained man, however, is not free. His passions govern him, or his imagination, and they are given free rein over the world. This is the ultimate nature of our technological culture. We believe that the world around us is defined by our unconstrained creative wills. We are comfortable with defining certain people out of the human family, as, for instance, the public acceptance of abortion on demand shows. Much more could be said in this regard. American nihilists are not totalitarians of the stripe that can result from nihilism. They are nice nihilists, dedicated to the relief of suffering and the building of a convenient life. They believe, in the words of one prominent American nihilist, that suffering and humiliation are the worst things. They are nice, as I say, and the nice are nice to the nice, and not so nice to the not so nice. Their politics and their literature aims to illustrate the problem of pain as if pain is the worst thing. And one must go further. American nihilists are particularly repulsed by the idea or the reality of death, painful or otherwise. Now, the Christian response to this particular variant of nihilistic niceness goes along with the ancient view of human happiness. Human beings move toward the good, not simply away from the bad. What kind of life is it that seeks merely to avoid pain or avoid death, instead of embracing life and seeking the good or the best? It is a much healthier disposition to seek than to avoid, for such a disposition opens human beings up to the best, what might be something like pleasing God. But as of now, the response does not depend on that. American nihilistic niceness leads one to deny life instead of embrace life. It leads to dourness, not joy, puritanical fanaticism, not exuberance. Flannery O'Connor has a famous letter where she describes the problem of nice nihilism, or nihilism American style, as one author put it. O'Connor recalled in this letter that the poultry industry was conducting experimental breeding of chickens without wings, with the hope that some of the chickens without wings would produce more white meat. She likened the effect of cultural nihilism to the breeding of wingless chickens. The moral sense has been bred out of certain sections of the population, like the wings have been bred off certain chickens to produce more meat on them, she writes. This is a generation of wingless chickens, which I suppose is what Nietzsche meant when he said that God was dead. It has become popular to believe that to think clearly or see clearly, one must first believe nothing, just as one must be a wingless chicken in order to produce white meat. Seeing, however, requires a horizon, a moral horizon, and that is something nihilism does not produce and does much to destroy. So the Christian, among others, worries that nihilism is not, in the final analysis, livable or conducive to the good life, and thinks that it will culminate in the destruction of any civilization that embraces it. This is not an argument against nihilism necessarily. Nietzsche tells us that there are true but deadly truths, and he thinks that nihilism is just such a one, a truth which, if we recognize it and act on it, will lead to the death of civilization as civilization has led to the death of God. What would a philosophic Christian response to nihilism look like? The question between the nihilist and the Christian relates to the cosmic meaning of the evils that both must, in an ultimate sense, recognize. To the nihilist question, how can there be evil? The Christian poses a more fundamental question. How can there be anything at all? Where did the stuff of life and the stuff around us come from? This is a deep criticism. It has two aspects. First, we must recognize how human beings come to recognize evil as evil. How a nihilist can pose the question he wants to pose. Evil is seen as evil, as undesirable, as an offense against the backdrop of something that is good. It presumes, in other words, a frame of reference where the evil is seen for itself. No evil without the framework of good might be the first anti-nihilist premise. I can put this more generally for the sake of clarity. Nihilism is a philosophy of nothingness and absence. Nothing underlies our beliefs. There is no cosmic support for justice or mercy or charity or anything. For a Christian, and for Flannery O'Connor, and for ancient political thinkers such as Plato and Aristotle, the starting point of all thinking is that there is something rather than nothing. We are born to a web of dependencies, parents and political communities, and other parts of our moral environment. That is something, but it points to the biggest something of all, the earth, the universe, and life itself. How can someone explain that there is something? Forget evil. It is a secondary phenomenon, if even that. That there are things and life around us points to the primary reality of something else, something permanent, something infinitely mysterious. To put this differently, what is the greater mystery and cause for wonder? That there is something, or that there is also something apparently evil? That evil is apparently something shows that the primary thing is the something that is not evil. Christianity, in other words, and at the very least, emphasizes the presence of something. That something is God. That there is something created all, that the something created all is one of the proofs of God's existence. It is a deistic argument mostly, yet it is an argument that points to stronger proofs of God's nature, that God is good and that he loves the world. That is why he made it. There is something, and that something is not nothing. This is a deliverance of revealed knowledge, to be sure, but it is also an argument completely accessible to reason. The second aspect of the Christian response to nihilism lies in a defense of the human soul. What is the soul? The window to the soul is something that nihilists must also acknowledge. The human desire to know themselves, their strengths, their weaknesses, inadequacies, virtues. This human desire may point to several realities. There is something to know, and we don't know, we know we don't have it. But that means that we must know somewhat what genuine knowledge looks like. Otherwise, we would not know that we don't have it. So human beings know that there is something that eludes our knowledge. And this very knowledge is, as I say, not nothing. A philosopher is wise in that he knows that he does not know, as Socrates insists in his Apology. To know oneself, Flannery O'Connor writes in a letter, is, above all, to know what one lacks. Against nihilists, a Christian of Flannery O'Connor's stripe says that this knowledge of a lack is not nothing. It is something. It shows that human beings grasp at the truth. It might even have an idea about the nature of that truth that they grasp for. We see through the dark glass, writes St. Paul, but we keep looking. This is the needy nature of the soul. The most serious nihilists, Nietzsche, Heidegger, and others, appreciate the longing for meaning and the thirst for knowledge every bit as much as a serious Christian and a serious philosopher. No one denies that there is this desire for knowledge. The question is how to interpret this thirst for knowledge. Is it a curse? Is it a blessing? Is it a tip-off to what genuinely is? Is it an empty desire? Is it fulfillable? Here Christianity seems somewhat aligned with ancient thinkers. Our thirst for knowledge is a tip-off to being, to the most important universal aspirations. Let us say that the soul longs for completion, for perfect knowledge, for the best that is. It is the soul that longs for the good. That first thing in order of importance. Now, there is disagreement about what is good. This disagreement is based in reason, and it represents a kernel of truth for those who think there is no final good. There is certainly not agreement on what that final good is. But the search shows something universal, something true about human beings. We want to know, and we know that we don't know. We can learn what we lack, and we aspire to fill that lack, to fill in the abyss. Knowing what we lack is a tip-off to our partial knowledge of what we do know, or of what knowledge would look like. The nihilists dogmatically assert that we do not know and cannot know. The nihilists' dogmatism lies in the alleged knowledge that we cannot know. The problem is that we do not know that we cannot know. Hence, Christianity, unlike nihilism, is among the modes of thought open to the whole, open to knowing. Christianity is, in this respect, less dogmatic than nihilism. Not that there is anything wrong with dogmatism per se, but that is a story for another day. Thank you.